Am I wired up? Can you hear me okay? Yep, great. Okay, 15 minutes. I'd like to think I might change some of your lives in 15 minutes. I'd like to give you in 15 minutes the way how to write the perfect plan, perfect digital marketing plan, perfect integrated marketing plan, or even a life plan or a business plan in 15 minutes. In fact, I'll do it in 4 minutes, but I'll elaborate it thereafter within 15 minutes. So this is it, back to basics. It's all about common sense. This is SOSTAC, and it was voted in the top 3 business models by the Chartered Institute of Marketing in its centenary poll, top 3 business models worldwide. It's since been adopted by companies like LinkedIn across Europe and the Middle East, and KPMG and some nice consultancies are kind of getting into bed with it as well. So it seems to be very popular. My hand was twisted by some Microsoft people, actually, and IBM people, ultimately, who got me to write a book about it and then develop it into this very simple system, which is now an online program. So S stands for situation analysis, where are you now? O stands for objectives, where are you going? S stands for strategy, how are you going to get there? The shortest part, the smallest part, the most important part of the plan. And tactics are the detail of strategy, that's the marketing mix and the marketing communications mix. And action is the bit that's forgotten about. That's the bit about how do you ensure your brilliant plan is executed with excellence and passion. And control, and so that needs to be in the plan. How do you do that? It's about internal marketing, communications, motivation training, all that sort of thing. And control is the last section of the plan, which is what are you going to measure, how often, how much will it cost, who's going to do it, and most importantly, what do you do with this information that you collect? How will it change decisions? So that's the kind of structure of SOSTAC itself. And I was telling a pal of mine about it in Dublin this morning. He's a dean of a major institution there. And he was telling me he's a bit overweight and he's on this kind of a strange diet. He has a piece of fruit and a brown roll for his lunch every day. That's his lunch. I mean, you think your lives are tough? Imagine that, you know, a piece of bread and a piece of fruit. And he's telling me that the little shop beside the institute, he went in there and he described the girl at the checkout as chewing her gum aggressively. And he puts this thing down and she says, you must be a bachelor. And he goes, oh, how astute of you, my dear. That's a great question. Perhaps you're studying next door. Let me guess, is it market research? He goes, no. He goes, oh, perhaps it's consumer research and insight. She says, no. She says, okay, maybe it's my own area. Maybe it's the psychology of marketing. And she goes, no, you're just ugly. And so only in Dublin, you might say. But the point we're making is your ability to ask great questions and analyze profiles. You know, they talked about data here earlier on. It used to be, you know, you are what you buy. And that's what she was kind of guessing. And now it's you are where you are and where you were, both online and offline. Layering location-based data on top of all the other data sources we have is an incredibly rich area to get into. When we look at the situation analysis, though, in a plan, let's just open it up for a second. Customers are a big part of the situation analysis, obviously. Customer analysis, competitor analysis, distributor analysis, your strengths and weaknesses, you know, the trends and opportunities in the marketplace, et cetera, et cetera. And hyper competition, of course, is creeping into every marketplace. But if we took just one of these and said, if you had just 3 questions that you could ask about your customers, what 3 questions would you ask? And the answer is, I categorize them into these 3 questions, because every single question you can think of about customers can actually be categorized into those 3 questions. Who are your customers? Who's your ideal customers? Who's your lousy customers? Why do they buy or not buy? Or why do they come to your website or not come to your website? Why do they leave? Why do they not repeat purchase? How do they buy? What's the digital journey and their offline journey? The online, the offline, the robo, the research online, buy offline, et cetera, et cetera. And also, how do people process your website? How do they process your emails? How do they process your videos that you send them? So that's an important part of answering that how piece. So if you drill down into all the questions that you can ask around these sorts of questions, I mean, this is just a sample of some of the questions that fit into the who's your ideal customer, et cetera. What are they saying about you? Who's attending a particular event? We can get free analysis on all of this stuff for free. We can get answers to this stuff about your customers. And in fact, the answers to every single one of these questions, and there's a lot more questions, are in this book, which we're going to give a copy to you on your way out. Those that would like a copy of that book, there's a complimentary copy on the way out. And every single one of those questions is answered in the book, and we point towards a free resource that will answer these questions for you. Equally with why. Why do you buy or not buy, et cetera? What are the trends? What do people really want? What are the motivations? You know, why do they not convert? What's been said about you? These are why. These are motivation. And these deep questions can be opened up and answered, and most of the answers can be delivered for free using the various analytical tools that are out there online, and we list them for you in the book. And thirdly, in customer analysis, how do customers buy? What's their journey? How long? How many channels do they use? Multi-channel funnel analysis. God bless Google Analytics for all that great stuff, because it's largely free, and it's incredible if you use these tools, the insights you get, you can answer the questions about your customers and your competitors. And it's so important that the situation analysis should be half of your plan. The rest of your efforts go into the rest. But the situation analysis, if you spend half your time developing really deep situation analysis, it'll give you the right decisions as you go through your plan. The answers will come to you. The decisions will be made for you. In fact, Albert Einstein once said, if I'd 1 hour to save the world, I'd spend 55 minutes defining the problem and only 5 minutes finding the solution. And the same principle applies to a SOSTAC plan. Situation analysis, go in deep, and it will give you the answers. The solutions will come. Just on that, situation analysis will help you make the perfect decision. Here's a little bonus for you in 30 seconds. I used to teach an MSc in decision making here in London many years ago. So I'm going to give you an MSc in decision making in 30 seconds. They'll shoot me for saying this, but here it is. How to make the perfect decision. This is how. Number 1, identify the problem, the opportunity, or the situation that you need to make a decision about. Number 2, define the information you need to make a great decision. Number 3, get the info. 4, digest the info. 5, make the decision. One of those 5 steps is rarely done, and that's the gem if you get into the habit of it, and that one is number 2. What information do you need to make a great decision about your ad campaign, about your SEO, about your marketing plan, about your brand names, whatever it is? Ask that question first, and you'll find you'll make better decisions. In fact, those questions will emanate from the situation analysis. So good in-depth situation analysis will help you build a great platform for a great plan. Then moving on from situation analysis, which is where are you now, we move to objectives. Where do you want to go? So we typically include in objectives the stuff like the mission, the vision, and the KPIs. So mission being, making the world a better place, Google making sense out of data, making useful information. That's kind of nice mission stuff. Vision is more about your headline that you'd like to see on the FT in 5 years down the road. It's selfish. It's about being number 1 or the biggest or the best. It's how great you are. Whereas the mission is about changing the world, making the world a better place. And KPIs, of course, the key performance indicators, I put them into the KPI pyramid. So you've got at the top return on investment, sales, market share, and down at the bottom, visitors, cost per visit, cost per inquiry, cost per like, and all that kind of stuff. So we move them through the C-suite reports and objectives down to the managerial objectives and down to the operational objectives. Now you can shuffle these bottom ones around a little bit, but what's interesting, if we flick this around and turn it upside down, it then becomes a funnel, and you're all familiar with the funnel. So here we've got at the top, we've got visitors, and down the bottom we've got sales. And you've seen your funnels. We saw one here just a few minutes ago. So with the visitors all the way down to the customers and sales results, and of course repeat purchases. Once we add numbers and percentages to each level of movement in the funnel, we can then work the maths out with objectives. We can either work the objectives in conversion terms, percentage terms, or absolute numbers. But you're in control of your business when you break it down like that from objectives. So objectives are all about where do you want to go. I have a co-author of a guy called Dave Chaffee. Has anybody ever heard of Dave Chaffee? Ah, right, okay. And anybody else ever heard of Smart Insights? Okay, it's the same guy. So Dave's co-author with me on another book called Digital Marketing Excellence. And I was going to stop this 5 S's and say I'm taking it out of objectives. And he said, why? And I said, because it just did it in the 90s. I'm just tired of it now. And he said, no. He said, people like it because it's an alternative approach. So the 5 S's for objectives stand for sell, serve, save, speak, and sizzle. And sizzle is about digital sizzle. I've seen CEOs come in and set an objective to a whole team and say, blow our customers away using some digital sizzle. I don't know how to do it. You're the brainy ones. Figure it out. Go figure. Come back and talk to me. And we'll put resource behind it. I love those kind of big objectives from CEOs, saying, give us some digital sizzle. And I've seen it now, both in B2C and B2B. Case as an example, I'm happy to talk to you about these things afterwards, where digital sizzle actually gives a better experience to people than the offline experience. And that goes right through to the Sistine Chapel. If you visited the Sistine Chapel, well, guess what? The Sistine Chapel digital experience is better than the real thing. Everybody I've showed it to says they're right. This is much better. You can climb up the walls. You can see the fake donkey ears he painted on the bishop's heads and so on. So all that kind of stuff you can't see when you go there yourself. So sizzle is about whether it's B2B and giving a great CX, a wonderful CX that helps them, the B2B people live a better life, do a better job. Digital sizzle can be applied and should be driven in as part of the objectives. So there's your objectives. Where do you want to go? Thirdly, we move into the strategy. Now this is the most challenging piece of the plan, and I would say it's the weakest piece of most plans. When I say to people, what's your digital marketing strategy, they generally tend to get into the tactics and then try to retrospectively put that back into a strategy. That's not a strategy. So we want to try and think and take control of strategy to drive the tactics. So for example, I'm not going to talk about, GE matrices for product portfolio strategy, or Ansoff matrices, or Porter's analysis, or McKinsey's matrices, or any of that, or military strategy warfare. I'm going to give you 9 components that I think should be considered in your digital marketing strategy, and in marketing strategies for that matter. So it's misspelling of top site is the acronym, TOPPPSITE, top site is the acronym for you. So T stands for targets, target markets. Critical to have in your strategy, obviously. O is for objectives. I'm not saying you necessarily have to have them in your strategy, but certainly don't write the strategy without watching closely what the objective or the purpose is. Onto P is for positioning and repositioning in particular. That's a big strategic piece. This is not tactics. You don't want to be swapping this every year. This is something you want to stick with. P is for partnerships, choosing carefully the partners you want to work with and piggyback into the nice marketplaces to add value to everybody. Processes are particularly if you're indulging in new processes like marketing automation and so on. And sequence is about, is there a sequence in your strategy? Are you targeting, if it's an innovation, you might be targeting the innovators and early adopters before you get to the early majority and the late majority. Different types of people that buy in different ways and need to be addressed in different ways. Is there a sequence? Develop credibility before raising visibility. That's one of the most basic sequences that you have to have in a strategy. How many companies get that wrong? A sequence might be to win over endorsers and influencers in the early stages, stage 1, and stage 2 would be to roll out. Or another sequence would be developing awareness and growing the awareness and understanding and trust of your brand before you move to the closing stages of sales and conversions. So there may be a sequence involved there. Integration is the data piece. How do you integrate all the data? Tactical tools. I'd only bring these into a strategy if you're making a radical change of your existing tactical tools. Your advertising, your PR, your sponsorship, your mail, those 10 communications tools. If you're making major changes like dropping TV advertising and switching to social CRM, or moving from traditional advertising into remarketing and retargeting. And finally, engagement is the tricky one. Everybody wants engagement, but very few can get it. So engagement is a more difficult thing to achieve these days. The numbers are dropping rapidly. I'm sure you've experienced it yourselves. But engagement is strategic. How do you want to move them on what we call the ladder of engagement? I'll show you that in just a second. But let me just pick out a few of these. I'll say a few words about just a few of these. This is Teddy Goff. This is an incredible guy. He was head of digital for Obama's, both his campaigns. He delivered big time. But he's a really clever guy. And I got the opportunity to talk to him in Lansdowne Road, the oldest international rugby venue in the world. And I asked him 4 questions and I recorded them and I put them into a blog post, which you're very welcome to read or watch. I just hope, please don't tell Donald Trump, because I don't want him to know the secret to success, which was, one of the secrets was targeting. Strategically, they decided that they would not go after the undecided voters, the not so sure ones, where the marginals will sway. They strategically said, no, we're going to target the Democrats. And we're going to put all our resources into the Democrats. A real big strategic decision, this, to target just the Democrats, the existing followers. And they believe from the 38 million followers that Obama had, his fan base on Facebook, that 38 million could reach 98% of the American voting population. And we're at a time where we don't trust. The pillars of society have gone. We don't trust the police. We don't trust the governments. We don't trust, the church. We don't trust anybody, the banks. The pillars of society have collapsed. Families have gone. So it's a whole new world young people have to struggle in, God love them. However, this guy said, we'll target the Democrats and we'll give them resources and let them have the events and we'll give them the checklist and we'll give them the bunting and everything they need, because somebody saying vote Democrat is much more powerful if it's your mate saying it to you rather than me in an ad saying it to you. And he was bang on. That was a strategic decision for some brilliance, I thought, to make it that very bold decision. Moving on to positioning and repositioning. Anybody smoke cigarettes? Just cigarettes? Anybody smoke the e-cigarettes? Okay. Don't know what you think about this guy and the Blue Cigarette Company. They came into the UK. They're spending 20 million in their campaign here in the UK. And the first mistake was to position it as an e-cigarette, which was an alternative method to give up smoking. Now, I think that's a mistake because that's quite threatening if you're a smoker. You may not be decided you want to give up just yet. So they repositioned it as something much cleverer, which is to reposition e-cigs as a lifestyle choice for smokers. Now, for me, that's quite a brilliant piece of work. I think they will enjoy success on that basis. But that's strategic. You don't want to be changing that every year. It's not flexible. You want to get stuck in and get your positioning right. Kenichi Ohmae once said to me, a world guru, said to me, Paul, there's no point rowing harder if you are rowing in the wrong direction. And it's so true. This is strategy. So if you get the strategy wrong, you're going to be going on all, people are working crazy hours. Tactics without strategy is just the noise before the defeat. And now it's written by possibly the best marketing book ever written, and it was written 2,000 years ago by Sun Tzu, the Chinese military strategist. The good news is if you buy it in the airport, it is translated, so it makes life relatively easy. Okay, so I'm going to whiz through just a handful of these. I won't go through them all. There's too many there. Let's have a look at processes. If you're changing processes, I would include this in your strategy statement to your CEO and to your board. I would think about new processes like marketing automation. It's a radical change to the world of marketing. I work with some interesting companies in this space, and it's quite basic, common sense, digital body language, triggering responses through an array of mechanisms that make it more relevant and personal. It's just brilliant. It's long overdue. As are the intelligent bots. Here come the intelligent bots. This is going to be an interesting time when the internet is not something you have to step into anymore or key into or go into with your laptop. It's going to come to us. Augmented reality will take us way beyond virtual reality. We'll have hovering holograms that'll be shopping bots. We'll have wedding bots. We'll have Winfra bots. We'll have warning bots. We'll have bots will play a much bigger role, I believe. So if you're engaging in intelligent bots or AI bots, or if you're engaging in marketing automation, I think it's worth mentioning that in your strategy. Probably not next year because it'll be old hat, but right now, if it's your first time doing it, I think your board needs to know that you're engaging with this stuff with your brands. Strategy, by strategy and integration, I mean of data. I love that fridge you were talking about there earlier on. If I take my last can of Guinness out of my fridge, it sets an alarm off. Last can of Guinness, last can of Guinness. Up on the side of the thing tells me, do I need to replace it immediately or will tomorrow do? Here's the best deals available. Just talk to my fridge and the thing gets replaced. But the integration of that data, not just the Internet of Things, but the integration of that data from the traditional profile tools we used to have and from social CRM and from all the other social platforms and from the data that's available to us elsewhere that we can scrape from so many different sources. It's that question, can you integrate it? It's a really strategic question, and I think it's the difference between success and failure for an awful lot of companies. I do a lot of work with a major bank here in the UK, and they're really struggling. They cannot integrate the data. The legacy databases are kind of choking them into submission from the new startups who've got brilliant integrated data systems, and the data is a source of competitive advantage here, without doubt. Oops. Integration of data, the Internet of Things is here. These are all, by the way, references to my blog, which or the book. You'll find most of the stuff in the book, or on the blog if you want to see these things explained in a bit more detail. To finish with the components for strategy, here is the ladder of engagement. So when I coined this phrase a few years back, the idea was to just demonstrate that you want to take your customers from low-level engagement, which is give me a rating, a review, a comment, a like, anything please, some kind of engagement. And maybe you might consider then moving up to a discussion. And maybe then you might throw some ideas at us and maybe ultimately help us build better products. Now, the ladder of engagement, if you decide to go down this route and develop a ladder of engagement at whatever level, this is strategic. This is not a tactical thing to change at the end of the year. It requires a lot of resource and 3 systems. You need a commercial system, a legal system, and a communication system to support it. You're giving me your ideas, so if I don't respond to you, you're hurt. So I need to communicate. And if I take one of your ideas and we turn into a commercial thing, I need to reward you. So I need a finance and the legal thing, the intellectual property. It's got to be all clear and well managed. So the ladder of engagement, the reality is about 90 to 9 to 1. 90% of your audience will do nothing. They'll just lurk. About 9% will engage at the lowest level, ratings, reviews, and about 1%, average of average, will float to the top in collaborative co-creation and help you shape a better business. So that becomes a social business if you decide to run your business that way. And that's what we mean by engagement. And engagement is, we don't expect big numbers here. It's relatively small. This is what Teddy Goff said about the Obama campaign. They just want to keep the followers connected and to get to hit the share button once in a while. They weren't saying they expected it every day, just once in a while. This photograph went viral amongst the Democrats. The caption was, "This seat is taken." And they just loved it. It just reflected some pride they have in America's first black president. So there is strategy. Moving into tactics, I'm going to whistle through this quite quickly. Tactics, here's what I call a tactical matrix to help you decide what of the 10 communication tools that are in there, which ones are more appropriate for different stages of your strategy. Which ones work best? So if you're trying to create awareness, obviously, advertising, PR, sponsorship, great. But if you're trying to move people from awareness through to the final stages, you might prefer email or pop-ups or direct selling or pay-per-click advertising. So what we do is take those communication tools, map them out across 9 criteria to open up a discussion. When you're getting into the heart and choosing which tactical tools are best, this may help you make some of those decisions. I apply the magic marketing formula, which is IRD, to all your tactics. So if you use this formula, it works beautifully. IRD means identify needs, reflect those needs straight back at the audience, and then deliver a reasonable product or service. Not an outstandingly brilliant one. It's great if it is, but reasonable is good enough. A reasonable product or service. Deliver a reasonable product or service. And if you apply that IRD, you'll find it actually, it will help you connect with the customers. You know that feeling when you put a long string of search words into a search engine and up comes exactly what you're looking for? That's that eureka moment. There's IRD in action. They've understood your needs, identified your needs, they've reflected them with SEO, and bing, up it comes, and there's a good fit, a natural fit. It applies to advertising, it applies to PR, sponsorship, everything IRD applies to. In fact, I think you're going to be competing with hyper competition and shortened attention spans. So your message is getting through, it's more difficult all the time. And ask yourself this question with your tactics. Ask yourself this question. It is this. Are you more interesting than my wife? That's the question to ask. Are you more interesting than my wife? So when the plethora of emails come in and sit there, and my wife's email's there, amongst all the other emails, or all the other ads or stuff that's competing to get my attention, is it good enough to cut through that inner circle, that close friendship? Are you connecting that closely? Okay, interesting to watch WPP using IRD. They identified financial directors having a disproportionate influence in client boardrooms. They now no longer define themselves as in that business. They say they used to be a creative business, but now they see themselves as a creatively effective business. That's IRD, appealing, finding out the needs, reflecting them back to the financial directors. So actions are the tiny little bit of the plan that's never included. Wonderful book by Larry Bossidy, the guy who took over from GE, who said execution, the ability to execute better than somebody else, is where competitive advantage lies. It's one of the places it lies. And so a lot of stuff, sloppy websites that fall over, all that kind of stuff. So how can you avoid it? Well, internal marketing is where it's at. Communications, motivation, training, checklist, right down to the shared experience. I have to tell you one quick story. KPMG flew me over to Toronto to train their digital marketing team in SOSTAC planning. And we went out for a big dinner one of the nights. And in this restaurant, it was one of the best restaurants. I'm not a food buff, but apparently it wasn't one of those better restaurants. And when soup came, it was delivered in cut-out coconut bowls, right? And before the group around the table had finished uttering the second W in the word wow, in that length of time, this is what happened. The waiter who served us, in a wonderfully camp, theatrical performance, he puts the thing down, everybody goes, oh wow, look at that soup. Before we've even said the word wow, he goes, okay, your Pinterest, your Instagram, your YouTube, your Twitter, yeah, I know, come on, give me those phones, let's do it right now. I'm not having my soup going cold. And I went click, 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 and we passed it out, bang, and he was gone. And I went, Jesus, did that guy really do that? My God, that's pretty cool. He's actually doing the thing we all want to do, which is not just a good CX, but he's doing the shared CX. That's what we really want to do, is get people, the system, your product, your program, your companies, your clients, to actually share the CX if it's a good CX. And they were trained right down to that level of detail to share. Because around the wall, interesting enough, was the logo and the URL attached, any angle. So that was in the background of most of the shots. And that's the shared CX, which is a big challenge for a lot of companies. How do you share your CX? Another question on internal marketing, how do you motivate your staff to become brand ambassadors? So much so they'd eat the dinner off the floor. This video is shocking. If you go to my blog and watch this guy eat his dinner, he goes to the Metro, it's in Canada, he cleans the floor and he takes out his curry and he throws it onto the floor, gets his linen out, goes down on hands and knees and eats every bit of it. And people are kind of puking watching him do it. But this is how much he believes in the power. He sells these floor cleaning kit. That's how much he believes. So that's motivation. That's the action bit that's forgotten. And to finish with is control. Control is the often left out bit, but we're talking about metrics and measurement. And in fact, what you want to measure, what you want to list in your plan, how often you're going to measure it, who's going to measure it, what it's going to cost, and what are you going to do with this information? That's the important thing. We're going to make better decisions. So what would you include in the control section? Because it influences everything, it needs to include all the stuff we talked about in the objectives just a few minutes ago. So we turn our objectives upside down, and there's the funnel, so we can list all those as stuff we need to measure. and all the other questions I've asked earlier on. All of these can be measured. And there lies the simplicity of SOSTAC. If you layer it with 3 M's, men, money, and minutes, men and women, the human resource, money, budgets, minutes, time, you'll see you've got a good plan with SOSTAC and 3 M's. It works very simply. Remember this before we finish. Everything changes. So in your control, remember that you're looking at a market that's constantly moving. Let's hope your customers and your sales are going up in your own businesses. But on top of that is your marketplace, which is pulling away all the time, every day, every month, every year. It's pulling away. And if you do nothing, you get left behind. The pest factors, political, economic, social, technological, variables are changing all the time, and they're pulling markets away from you. Here's an example of how markets change, and sometimes under our own feet, we don't even see it. I thought it might be appropriate, because you're having a champagne little reception right now, isn't that right? Yep. Well, bear this in mind. This is an ad from Ireland in 1972. I don't know if you can read it down the back there, but down here it says, "Don't have that 5th pint." It's actually a real ad from 1972. Just how things change, and it's crippled the drink, and rugby clubs have suffered from this as well. Let me finish with my final point for you, which is control is very important, but we're not going to get over anal about analytics. Sorry about that. We're not, no. We'll say the balance has to be right. Analytics and more information to make better decisions, absolutely critical, and it should be part of the process of your plan. But equally, creativity is going to be more and more important. You need to nurture that creativity. And this, for me, is a fine example of offline and online coming together. This one graphic image it's in Vauxhall, 9 Elms actually, of this swimming pool. It's transparent base, so you can swim, watch the airplanes, or watch the people underneath it between the 2 buildings. It's only a graphic. It's not a photograph. It's a graphic, so it isn't even built yet. But seeded in the right way, and this is back to basics. The same basic principles prevail in business, by and large. Same basic, love thy customer, help thy customer, all that sort of thing. Same basic principles. So it's back to basics, and this really is back to basics. This is taking an image and seeding it with the influencers, both the media and the bloggers and the influencers, and giving it to them and saying, have a look at this, and working really hard with, that's back to basics. That's the same old stuff. Don't forget the good stuff. So that generated 1 billion opportunities to see within 24 hours, and generated ultimately $21 million pounds worth of sales from something as simple as that. So there's SOSTAC. Where are you now? Where are you going? How do you get there? Tactics, the details of how you get there. Actions, the details of tactics. Control, how do you know you're getting there? Add in the 3 M's, the 3 key resources, men, money, and minutes, and you'll know. So anyway, the 3 M's is men, money, and minutes. Men and women, the human resource, money, budgets, minutes, time scales, which is the most difficult resource. So there you have a very simple system. There is an online planning system around this, and there's videos and stuff in there. If you want to see what I've said again, it's online there. And that really is it. Oh, there is one other thing I should mention is my not-for-profit program, the Great Sportsmanship Program, which is full of Liverpool stories and other stories across all sports to inspire a new generation of young people. It's a not-for-profit. If you're interested in that sort of thing, it's short stories about sportsmanship across every sport in the world, across the world, and it does change people's lives. Have a look at that. I'll leave that up there as the final slide. So I will stop babbling away and hand it back to you.